Hi folks, happy Tuesday. Hope your week's going good. Figure we do some questions and answers here. Several of you asked questions in the comment sections of some of my videos, and I've told you I'll get back to you on them, and I figured I finally would. First question comes from Dan C. He asked about the size of feedlot mangers and manger space and pen size and all that. I got a real good friend here with me. His name's John, and he's real knowledgeable, and this is his feedlot, and figured we'd just talk about that. So first thing we figure is we'd measure the mangers and have him explain to you his reasoning for the size of these mangers.
The reason with the manger size is you want plenty of access for the calves, but you also don't want them pushing feed out of the manger where you have a mess and create a lot more labor. You want to be able to feed inside the manger so they'll consume it and without any mess any more than you have to deal with.
Okay, you can see how there's a little bit of chafe on the outside. That's just from dust blowing. We do pitchfork the outside of these mangers once in a while, not that much. The height of this outside wall here is kind of determined by the feed wagon you're running. This one sits right below the lip of our feed wagon, so there's not a bunch of space for wind to blow feed underneath that wagon. And the depth of the manger itself is 2 foot, almost exactly. Okay,
That's for the outside wall.
for the outside wall. The wall that the cattle eat over is 18 inches high. The floor of this manger is even with the floor that they stand on there. What you got for a total width? Total width, 2 foot, right about 2 foot there. So, and this allows you to, this size of manger allows you to figure how much manger space per calf.
Right. And we have, when building this, you want to set your posts first,
Okay.
and then you form around your posts when you pour your concrete. And the first thing you do is you pour the slab for the manger and what they stand on. And so depending on the size of cattle you have to measure those cattle so they're up there and plenty of room to stand on. If you're feeding cows, you're going to be a little bigger platform for them to stand on.
Right.
And if calves, you're going to be a little smaller. If anybody's going to do it and got cattle, I would measure for a cow or a bull. That way you can put anything in here.
Right. We have the platforms we're talking about there is that when the cattle stand on to eat. And we have a couple different widths here. And my favorite, I think, is a 10 foot.
Yeah.
And that's great because even the big bulls can stand on it and get out of the mud. And it's wide enough you can drive a tractor down it, put the bucket down it, and clean it all in one pass, rather than having the tractor halfway off in the mud or something like that.
And you'll see from this platform it's smooth. That was some old cement I had from years ago when I was pouring a church mouse. The finish you want on the platform is rough. That way the cattle don't slip on it when they're standing on it.
Okay. How do you figure bunk space per head?
Well, we've got 10 foot between posts, and roughly for a warm-up lot, which is feeding calves anywhere from at weaner size up to about 800, and I figure about 5 head between posts.
Okay. So that's about 2 foot manger space per head.
Right.
Okay. Now how do you, in a perfect situation, how big would the pen size be relative to the manger size?
If figure the distance of a square on all 4 sides,
Okay.
with only one side being the manger space, and that's a rough figure. You can do a rectangle the same way,
Gotcha.
where you shorten your manger a little bit if you're on the long end of a rectangle.
Okay. So if you were building a perfect square for 50 head, you'd have 100 foot of manger space, and that pen would be 100 foot deep. And that gives them
Right.
that gives them enough space to move around and get out of each other's way and have their own space.
And bed down.
And bed down. Let's walk over here and show a bigger pen. This small pen here is what we call our weaner pen. and we use it for calves that are fresh weaned usually, so it's a smaller pen, that way they don't get to running around being goofy. Now this next pen here, it has 2 mangers in it and a lot of space. You can see how these cattle in this pen, some of them are eating, some of them are sleeping, laying down, chewing their cud, playing on the manure hill. This is a nice big pen. Cattle do really well in it. Is there a reason that this feedlot is shaped like this big horseshoe, John?
When I bought this ranch, it had an old wood set of corrals, and it's bigger than what it was when I bought it. And I used the existing corrals and replaced metal from wood.
Okay.
And if I had done it over again, I would have built, if you picture in your mind a set of 1 corrals, like straight ahead, and then put another set of corrals over on the other side, both having the mangers, and then a spot at the end you can turn around.
Okay, so a central feed alley.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you can also use that as a sorting alley
Okay.
to bring them over to your doctoring pens.
Okay.
And that's a universal method right there.
Yep, that's pretty common. Most guys have seen that.
Another thing that I've learned over the years, I can't do it here. If you have multiple water tanks, when you're building a set of corrals fresh, if you can laser in those water tanks to be all the same elevation, and then build a pump house with a tank inside that's heated with a little tank with 1 float. And that 1 float will manage the levels on all the water tanks, and you never have to worry about breaking your floats in cold weather, because it'll be in a warm shed that is protected from the cold.
Makes sense. Less parts there is to break.
Right.
Okay. All right. Do you worry about your neck cable here? How high it is versus if you got cows or bulls?
Some adjustments we'll show you on another pen where you can put that cable and you can adjust it for the size of your cattle.
Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll walk over there.
Yeah.
While we're right here though, why don't you talk to me a little bit about your trailer loading here? Because any feedlot has to have a way to get cattle in and out.
Right.
And I don't know of anybody that does that strictly horseback. They always have a truck involved.
Yeah. And basically what you're looking at is an alley for loading trailers next to your load and chute for loading semis.
Okay, what he's saying this here is where we load our goosenecks. Let's put a tape measure on this real quick, just the width of it. We'll just go post to post here.
You're talking 8 foot?
8 foot wide. When we back these goosenecks in here, you back them in, and if you notice, this would be the driver's side of a truck. Sticks out a little bit further than that passenger side because the majority of horse trailer doors hinge on the passenger side. So you back up right flush with this just about, and that leaves a little bit of gap there to where a person can walk in there, open the door, and then it's sealed off.
The other thing it allows you to do is if you go around where the trailer door hinges, it gives you a small space to walk in back.
Yep.
So you don't have to climb over a fence.
Yep. Okay, and then your semi-load, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and configurations. Now this one wasn't built for semis originally, was it?
No, it was built for bobtail trucks.
Okay, and I don't know what guys call those in different parts of the country, but that's just
a little 2-ton truck with a rack on the back where you can handle 5 cows, something like that.
Yep, was really popular in the 60s and 70s, right. And then as trucks evolved, we got into the trailer scenario.
It was also built by semis because semis back then were side-loading semis. They were a set of doubles where you had a front trailer and a back one, and you could pull up next to it.
Okay, so the doubles then, they would have pulled around the inside of this horseshoe here.
Right. And
side load directly into it.
Right.
Now we can load today's 53-foot bull haulers in here.
But we have to maneuver and jockey to get in.
Yep, the drivers get a little bit frustrated with it because it is a tight fit. They got to pull up and just about touch the manger on that side there to get in here, but most of them can do it.
Ideally, if I was going to do it again, the loading chute would be on the end of the corrals.
Down that way?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'd have your sorting corrals, your sick pens, and your loading chute. But the loading chute being on the end, you can make it where a truck can back up as far as he wants to get lined up for the loading chute.
Gotcha. Give them lots of room to maneuver.
Yeah.
Okay, let's walk over and see those adjustable cables. So we're on our way to go see the adjustable cables. Most of our pens here don't have them. One thing I wanted to point out is this mesh here. It's just closing off a small spot. It's unlikely that a calf or a cow would ever decide to put their head in a spot like that, but they do it, and when they do it, it usually ends really poorly. So, you know, it looks kind of tacky, but that spot's not dangerous to anything.
If you look to your right, you'll see a mound. I don't like to have corrals that are strictly flat. I'd like to put in a small mound where cattle can lean against them, and they seem to be more at home than a straight flat corral.
They love to lay on the mounds.
Yeah.
I believe there was a university that studied the rate of gain in, I believe it was stocker age cattle in pens that had mounds versus didn't. I don't remember what university or what the difference was, but the pens with the mounds did gain better. I don't know how much. Again, I'd have to find that study. It'd probably take me a while. One thing we did try with our cables is we added these turnbuckles to where we could just keep some tension on these cables, and it was a really, really good idea that didn't work. These turnbuckles are a lot softer metal, and they're all breaking, what, about 3 years old?
Yeah.
So we just go back to this style where it's just through that loop, and we pull it tight with a cable stretcher or cable puller, whatever you want to call it. Okay, here's our adjustable neck cable here. You can see this rod here pulls up, and you can raise and lower that cable as you like. We've got it set for weaned calves right now.
If you raise it all the way to the top, a bull or a cow can fit in there pretty comfortable. If you have it too high like that for small weaner calves, they can get through the manger, so you want to go to the lower one settings.
Yep. There's nothing worse than going to feed and seeing a bunch of calves standing outside your pens. All right, you got any other thoughts, or what would you do different, or what do you like about your setup, or?
You know, that's pretty much it. This setup isn't ideal. Like I told you, it's just what I have, and it's dealt with existing corrals. But I do recommend, if you do build any corrals, don't do it out of wood. Build it out of pipe. And the longevity of a pipe corral is far more in the price of wood. I think with the price of lumber the way it is now, you can build them out of pipe and be pretty reasonable compared to lumber.
A set of pipe corrals, not even factoring price, but a set of pipe corrals ought to last 3 or 4 generations of people.
Yeah, and I've learned some tricks, and that is, if you look at the bottom of the pipes, I just poured concrete. I've seen, and what happens is the manure will slowly rust out the bottom of the pipes.
Okay, how do you combat that?
I've seen guys where they put a sleeve out of PVC in the ground and have it come up about 1 foot 18 inches, and that way with the manure never contacts the pipe. The bad thing is, if you live in a real wet climate, moisture can get between there and do a rust thing too. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Wonder if a guy could sleeve it like that and then foam fill it or something.
Maybe silicone it or something.
Silicone it something. If you know or you have a good solution to that problem, make sure and let me know there in the comments. One thing we want to make sure and do As you can see, that bow's bent right there. I'll own that one. I kind of got a little bit excited leaving there with the backhoe one day. That's what happens when you put a cowboy in a backhoe, I guess. So make sure and build your bows about 1 foot or 2 foot taller than the tallest piece of equipment on the ranch.
Exactly.
Not the tallest piece of equipment you think you'll have in that pen, the tallest piece of equipment on the ranch.
Yes.
And then pretty remedial here. You can see we have 2 chains on all the outside gates. That's because cattle do what cattle do, and sometimes 1 chain just isn't enough. So, any final thoughts?
Well, if you've never used a bow on a gate, they're worth their money in gold because they keep a gate from sagging.
Yeah.
And you can see I've got 3 gates come together here, and I've tied the bows together, and a person can even go across
On the diagonal? Okay.
and even get better support because your gate swings out.
Okay.
But they're worth their money putting in bows.
Right. Well, awesome. Well, thanks, John. I appreciate your time.
You betcha.
Alrighty, guys. We'll catch you in just a second with the next question and answer. Okay, another question we had is how wide our main sorting alley is. And I apologize, I forgot who asked this question. So I apologize for that. I know I'm trying to put names with these questions, but so it's just made out of guardrail, pretty common. This guardrail is real tough to get to line up, so you do have a little bit of edges like this. I've never seen them cause any problem, but that's about the biggest one in the whole thing, and it's about 1 inch. In a perfect world, it would be totally flat, but we all know the world ain't perfect. Anyways, total width on this sorting alley, 16 feet. Maybe if you went from the inside rung to the inside rung of the guardrail, it'd be like 15 and a half or something like that, but 16 foot. I guess I could step off a total length for you. I'll do that real quick and be right back. So it's 65 paces, 3 foot to a pace, right about 200 foot long. So 200 foot long, 15 foot wide, 16 foot wide, right around there. And it handles 50 to 60 or 70 pairs really well. And again, like John was saying, up at the other feed lot, you end up money ahead by building them out of pipe these days instead out of wood. Put bows on all your gates. I'm gonna go talk about our squeeze chute a little bit. Nobody asked about it, but I got a couple little things to say about it that might save somebody some headache and offer some pointers. I'll catch you guys over there. Alright, so our only hydraulic squeeze chute on this outfit is a silencer. I've nothing bad to say about this silencer. It's had a lot of cattle run through it. It's holding up good. The customer service at Silencer has been awesome when we did have a couple issues with it. Our back gate was getting pretty lethargic. We called them up, and the customer service was awesome. Gave me some things to check. It helped it out, and we still kind of thought, gosh, you know, it could just still be a bit quicker. And I ended up loosening. You can see on the hinge right there. The chute's dirty, but we got some more cattle to run through it. We do clean it pretty well for the season. But you can see that hinge is a nut and bolt, and it's the same. Where is it at? Get the camera on it. It's the same right there for the top. I just got to looking at them, and I took crescent wrench and an impact gun and busted those nuts loose, and then just tightened them down snug, and it solved it. So it's pretty robust. It is really good up here. It doesn't have any spots really where cattle can get front legs caught in it. I don't know which model it is. I don't know, if you guys want to know more, I can get more info on it. But it's a nice chute to run. One thing to consider when installing a chute, it's hydraulic. You notice the lines run into this PVC pipe right here. The hydraulic motor's over there underneath the loading chute. That just gets the noise away. That way when you're working cattle right here, you don't have that all day in your ear. You can hear each other talk. You don't have to scream. Makes it a lot more pleasant for everybody. A lot of them have them mounted up top. This one was moved over here just to eliminate the noise. Nothing to do with silencer in their chute, but we did have the original motor fail. If you notice, it's got a new motor on the old pump, and I can't remember if it, well, we were preg checking. I don't remember if it wasn't this fall. Had to have been last fall. Well, the motor, I believe, was 20 years, between 20 and 30 years old. But we were preg checking, and none of the cattle wanted to flow through this lead up and into the squeeze. And these cattle don't normally fight us. Normally they have really good corral manners. They're kind of a pleasure to be around. And they were not wanting to go around that corner behind my hand there. And then they'd get right about here and they would just put the brakes on, and it was a fight. And we preg checked them, and then just about the last cow, Dr. Torvik was preg checking for us. Just about the last cow, I had this perspective because I was a horseback, and I seen her run in and she twinged real hard. And Dr. Torvik and I looked at each other, and just at the same time we said, she's getting shocked. Well, we got her preg checked and got her out of there. And I went and got a multimeter, and I don't remember how much power the chute had, but it had enough to where it was basically like hitting these cattle with a hot shot. And I put a ground on the chute, just, I mean, a ground rod stake with a piece of extension cord wire that I stripped down on the ends and ran through a bolt and a chute down to the ground rod, and it reduced it a bunch, and helped us get through another bunch of cattle after that. And they still didn't really want to go through it, but they were better. And I was still on the multimeter, I was still reading voltage at the chute. Well, the chute's hydraulic. There's no lights, there's no sensors, there's nothing. Okay, so where's the power from? So I tested all the corrals around it, thinking maybe this overhead wire was touching and had rubbed or something, and the corrals didn't have no voltage in them. And I called a friend up. Thanks for the advice, Trent, if you're watching this. And he says, check your hydraulic fittings. And I says, what? He says, go check the hydraulic motor. So I come back here and checked these fittings right here. This is where it comes back into the tank, and I checked the other one behind it there where it leaves the tank, and I had that same amount of voltage. And he says, your motor's bad. And I says, well, we're not losing pressure or nothing. He says, no, he knows a lot about the motors. He says, such and such a part of the motor. He says, put a new motor on it and ground the motor, and you'll be good to go. And we sent that motor off to be rebuilt and ordered this new one. So we have a rebuilt motor now. And the guy that rebuilt it says, yeah, the internals of it were bad, and it was passing power through the hydraulic lines. If you don't know, hydraulic line has metal braided webbing in it. That's how it holds the high pressure, and the current was flowing through those into the chute. So maybe that'll save somebody a headache if you ever have your cattle randomly start fighting you to go into the squeeze when they normally don't. Put a multimeter on it. It's a quick check, and that could possibly be the problem and maybe a solution. We learned that one the hard way. It's a 1 in a million thing, I think, but you know, hopefully I could pass that information on and save somebody a headache. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. I'll see you guys in just a second. Okay, Dane M asked if I'd show off or talk about my headstalls and bits and hackamores and stuff. I figured I'd just give you a run through my tack room. I got 2 hackamores. First one's here. I got this one in a trade. I think I traded a set of spurs for it. I call this my thumper. It's heavy for a hackamore. It's, by the feel of it, it's got a steel cable as a core. It's heavy and stiff. I don't use it all that often because it'll make one sore. It'll leave marks on them. Once in a while you've seen it on Henry maybe, and if Henry really gets to wanting to push through my normal hackamore, I'll put this one on him because I can thump him around in it. Like I said, I don't use it that often. I got kind of a little homemade sort of Feodor on there. Not because I think Feodors are necessary, just because it prevents them from backing up and pulling the hackamore or the Bosal off over their nose rather. So that's the first one. This is the second one. It's a bit softer. It's still fairly stiff for hackamore, but it's a lot lighter. It's a lot smoother on the nose band here, on the jaw bars here. It's still a little bit rough. You know, if your hands get too rough with it, you'll chew one up. But I use this one constantly. This is my number one. I do need to get a bigger lightweight one for Rush and Hot Lips and Trapper John because they are so much bigger than the average horse. To pair with my hackamores, I got 2 McCartys I use. One is made out of that nice yacht braid that I was telling you I like so much. This is one I'll use in the winter. It's got a real pretty shoe fly on it. I take my hackamores, or I take my McCartys rather, off of my Bosals every night, break the hackamore apart. That allows me to store my McCartys hanging like so. It allows me to store my Bosals like so, upside down. If you leave them tied together, your McCartys get kinks in them and your hackamores end up curved. Pair of Shaps. D-Bar M made these. They're actually my wife's, but I wear them fairly often because I'm too lazy to build myself a set of my own. Got a horsehair McCarty here. It's got some electrical tape on it. It's old. This one's been used a lot. The electrical tape's from where colts have tried to chew on it. The horsehair gets really stiff when it gets wet, so if it's dry out, I'll use the horsehair. If it's wet out, I'll use my yacht braid. I like to use my horsehair on younger horses as it's a little bit pokey. It gives them a little bit better of a feel. If something's being really good, like you've seen me with this yacht braid on Henry, when he's been really good, I'll kind of reward him by putting him in this yacht braid because it's less of it's a softer cue, I guess you could say. I'm probably gonna get a whole bunch of hate for how I talk about my hackamores and stuff. Whatever, I don't care. It's how I do it. This is a halter for Rush. It's basically a draft halter. My mother got it for me for Christmas. Thanks, Mom. The little rope I got tied on it right now is just to get by. I traded a set of saddlebags for that little rope. It was a good trade to a good friend. Thanks, Rosie. You guys will meet him in a couple weeks. Hang this back up right here. I'll switch this around. Got an old strip of dally wrap there that's dead and gone. Okay. Oops. Hang this halter up here real quick. This is kind of hard to do one-handed. This is the bridle that I ride Luke in. I believe it's Mona Lisa. It was supposed to be a full spade. My wife got this for me as an anniversary gift. It is a GS Garcia from Capriolas in Elko. She ordered it and it didn't come as a full spade. It came as that, but that's okay. Luke doesn't use a full spade anymore. He did for a while when I brought him up through the 2-rein. That's what I did, was in a full spade. I had one at the time. Then I got in a big wreck with a bunch of pack horses one time. He was my saddle horse, and I had him straight up in the bridle at that point, and was stepped off and was packing some salt on my pack horses, and they were kind of a bunch of jug-headed broncs, and a wreck ensued. And as a result of that, one of them pulled Luke's bridle reins off over his head somehow, and when he went to run off, he stepped on him, and that spade cut his tongue real bad. Blood everywhere. It was a hell of a wreck. I felt horrible for him. I put him back in the hackamore for 3 or 4 months or something like that while his tongue healed up. But as a result, he's got some scar tissue on his tongue, and he doesn't feel that full spade very well anymore. So that smaller Mona Lisa, he likes it a lot better. Those of you that have rode Luke in real life, that are my close friends, you know he's not the softest mouthed horse, but he does pretty good. So that's what I ride Luke in. Another bridle I've got is this spade. I don't ride it very often, mainly because Luke's the only thing I got to hang a bridle in right now, and like I said, he don't feel those very well. I don't think there's a maker's stamp on this one. Might be a homemade gig, I don't know. I have rode in this one a bunch. Yeah, I got the curb straps stole off it right now. It's plenty nice enough to ride in. I just don't have a use for it right now. Got a big cotton rope there. I'll use Luke's neck rope sometime. Saddle pads. Some of my wife's tack I need to get hangers made for. Sorry, honey. So Woodrow was asking if I was going to talk about the new ropes, and I am, but I'm going to take a short break real quick because I need to change the battery on my camera. Okay, just like that, we got a fresh battery. So you guys voted for the red, white, and black rope to be on my saddle first. There she is. This rope is way better feeling than the last white rope was, that white rope. I did not break it in by running across my saddle horn like I usually do. I was flipping through YouTube and noticed on 310 Ranch Life's channel, they had a suggestion for breaking the wax cottons in, and that was to wrap it around a piece of drill pipe and pull on it with a 4-wheeler. And I basically did the same thing. I just pulled on it by hand a couple times. This rope is a pretty soft, limber feeling rope, where that white rope was real cable-y, real stiff and kinky. This rope's a lot better. It's not going to be very long at all. I'm going to be treating this with linseed oil, and possibly after that even painting it. We'll see how it breaks in. So that's the new rope situation for you, Woodrow. Okay, let me check my cheat sheet notes real quick here. I'm going to talk about saddle pads in just a minute. I tried to write down all the questions that you guys have been asking me. Okay, Zach M asked about my bedroll, if I'd show the breakdown of that. Yes, I will. It's in my horse trailer. I'll dig it out, and I'll talk about that when I get over there in just a minute. I forget who. Somebody asked if I decided for a name on the puppy, and I did. Jen R commented suggesting the name Baker as kind of a homage to where she's from, and that actually works for better than that because, as some of you figured out, my horses have a MASH theme for their names, and. And Hawkeye Pierce had a girlfriend named Lieutenant Baker. So Baker is her name. She's doing good, getting big. She's a horrible pain in the butt about house training. It's been a wreck. But in another couple weeks, she'll get another parvo shot. She'll be able to go outside, and hopefully that will be easier to potty train her to be outside versus potty training her to pads inside the house. Okay, saddle pads. I'm gonna go out to Russia and Henry real quick, and we'll start this conversation. I suppose also why we're out here with the boys, I can show you guys how Trapper John has been doing. He's 6 days out from being gelded, and he is doing great. Yeah. So, happy little gelding here. And Luke says hi. Okay. Totally honest here. Henry should not have these white marks. You can see, go down to his sides here. This is where my latigo sits. This is where my ring sits. My rigging. And of course where my bars sit. He's kind of dirty, but there's a little bit there. The other side is a little bit worse. Henry didn't have any white marks on him. I bought a new saddle pad. I'll show you which one. And I went to the Knott Creek Ranch for that week. A couple days after I got home from that trip, these white marks started to develop. And they've been here since. He never acted sore. I thought that new saddle pad was sweating him well. I was wrong. Also, Luke, are you gonna let me see? Luke doesn't really like to be caught. Oh, bud. Luke developed a little bit. I don't know if the camera will show it. A little bit on his bars, or where the bars of the saddle sit. A little bit down by my rigging also. Can I go to your other side there, big guy? No, not really. Yeah, that's how Luke is. I'm not gonna chase him. A little bit on the other side too. And the same on Rush. So I have something going on with my saddle, and it started when I got that new pad. I have a friend who is a saddle maker. See where my bars sit? A little bit down by my rigging there. I have a friend who is a saddle maker. He told me what to look for. So I'm gonna go back in the tack room. So you guys Trapper John in the light there. I'm gonna go back in the tack room and keep talking about this. Okay, for those of you that don't know, those white marks are pressure marks. They're from a high amount of pressure on a horse. The idea of a saddle and saddle pad is that it distributes the pressure of the rider and being cinched up and all that evenly. So, go to my trusty old wood here. This is not a fault of the friend of mine who built the saddle. I will say that first off, and I will never ever blame this on my buddy that built this saddle, because I have re-rigged the saddle since. So, a different friend who's also a saddle maker with many, many more years of experience was talking to him, sent him pictures of my horse's backs, and he told me how he wanted me to check my rigging. So I checked my rigging, and the ring on the other side was 3/4 of an inch lower than this ring. So I brought that other side up. The rings are now in the same spot on either side of the tree to within about between a 1/16 and an 1/8 of an inch. They're not perfectly exact, but they're within tolerances. That could be part of the cause. Now back to the saddle pad conversation. I had been riding this saddle for 4 or 5 years with this pad. It is a Zone series powered by Zoom Bang. Okay, classic equine Zone series. You can see that. This pad was great for me. Did notice it's getting old. There's not much cushion there. Gosh, let's replace it. So, little backstory, when I bought that pad, I had just wore out this classic equine pad which was an ESP Contour. This was a great pad. I got along great with it. So I went to local tack store. All they had was a ESP Contour. Great, I'll get this one. I've got along with it before. This was the brand new pad that I switched to when all these problems started. I don't think there's anything wrong with this pad. I'm not bashing Classic Equine. I've had lots of their pads and had super good results with them. But maybe between that saddle getting as many miles as it had, it needs this particular pad, and I just happened to get it on accident. I told all this to my saddle maker friend as I was talking to him, and he suggested maybe not riding this pad anymore, go back to my old pad and order a new pad that matches this one. Well, I couldn't find the 31 by 32 inch, so I got a 30 by 30 inch. Should be okay. But it's the same thing, zone with zoom bang and all the gizmos or whatever. So that's an admission of fault there that left some marks on my horses. I'm not perfect. I never claimed to be perfect. There was only one perfect man, and he was hung on a cross 2,000 years ago, and he'll be back. So, but that's the saddle pad situation right now, and the saddle situation right now. This saddle does not seem to fit Rush very well because he's built pretty different than the normal horse. So I am re-rigging and re-sheepskinning one of my old saddles, which is not a Wade Tree, it's a Swell Fork. It's, let me think, it's a 55-year-old saddle made by Noel War out of Salt Lake. It was my stepfather's saddle. It has a lot of sentimental value. Anyways, I will go inside and show you my progress on that. Okay, this is my little leather table here. Please excuse the mess, I'm kind of a messy worker. And this is my stepfather's saddle that I'm in the middle of putting that new rigging in. It's a 7/8 double rig. This rigging is square. I measured it according to how my friend told me to measure it. Also, if you're watching this, oh, the video's turned. I'll edit that out. Never mind this. If you're watching this, thank you, Kim, for all the advice with my saddles. I appreciate it. Above and beyond the call. So, this is the saddle that I will ride Rush in, primarily. Front cinch, back cinch. I'm going to build a pull-in collar to put on it, because I've noticed he does like to push on things with his chest. That's how he's bred, and I'm going to use that to my advantage. That way when I rope something that needs to be drugged somewhere, he can pull on that pull-in collar and not have to rely just on a cinch. So I use the old hardware and templates. I've kind of messed this piece of sheepskin up. I don't know, probably not gonna be able to make that fit because there's some bald spots on the bottom side of it right here. I'm working through that. Hopefully I can have this one done in 2-3 weeks, something like that. I just work on it at nights after I get home, but it's coming along. It's, like I said, it's got a lot of sentimental value to it. So this is one of my skirts for that saddle. I've got the sheepskin glued on it. The glue's drying right now. It's sat next to the fireplace here. My wife just loves this project because the house reeks like contact cement. Sorry, honey. So, that's also why I have a dozen roses on the table. She doesn't know this yet. Anyways, let's go talk about a bedroll. That was the question from Zach M, was to show the breakdown of my bedroll. So let's head outside and I'll tear that apart and show it to you. Okay, here's my bedroll. I unrolled it already because you can see I got my first name right there. Underneath that is my full name and my phone number. I didn't feel like all of YouTube seeing that. most of you guys are good people and all that, but there's that occasional weirdo. I just don't want them to have my personal phone number. I have it wrote on the outside of my bedroll. That way, if it falls off the truck or gets lost one way or another, it can get back to me. They're not cheap. This one's from Capriola's. It's several years old. See where a dog chewed on it. I think you can see it's got a bunch of stains and stuff. I mean, it's been used. But yeah, right there. My brother borrowed it and got in a fight with a propane heater, and that's the end result. For those of you that have never seen cowboy bedroll, it's made out of canvas. You can retreat the canvas as needed with waterproofing, so it's waterproof, but I'll break it down for you. Okay, now if I was actually going to climb into this, I would take my boots off before I stepped onto that little spot there. Try and keep the inside of this thing as clean as possible. That's easier said than done. In my experiences, the bedrolls always have just a little bit of a itch, you know, from little cheatgrass seeds and stuff like that. Also, if I was climbing into this to go to bed, I'd probably only open 1 or 2 of these snaps. But for this instance, I'm going to open them all so I can pull it apart and show you guys how I have it made. Flips open like that. Okay, the last time I took this anywhere, I took it to the Knott Creek Ranch in September, so really wasn't that cold at night. I don't have a ton of bedding in here right now. I'll take this, flip it down. It got cold enough to freeze that night, and this was pretty comfortable sleeping. I slept in my clothes. I usually do when I'm in my bedroll in a dry camp like that. You know, if I'm in a camp where there's a cabin or something, I might pull some blankets out or whatever. I'll probably just sleep in my underwear. Like I said, dry camp, I sleep in my clothes. When you crawl into it, dust your boots off, take your spurs off your boots, throw your boots in your bedroll with you, or even wear them. Okay, so first thing you'll notice is I have this, I don't know, it's like bubble wrap on the inside and like foil on the outside. It's like cheap insulation. This whole sheet was like $15 or $20. If you're sleeping somewhere like where there's frozen snow or the ground's frozen, that stuff right there, man, it'll keep so much of that cold from radiating up from the ground. It'll keep you so much warmer. It's also kind of waterproof. So if the snow melts or something from your body heat, well, it'll stop most of that, and then what does melt won't soak up through your canvas, through your pads. I'll show you the pads here. I'll show you everything else from this end of it. I have just 2 foam pads that make up my mattress. The top one's egg crate, and the bottom one's the original foam pad that come with it. Pretty comfy. On the top, I got some wool blankets. Wool is the warmest material by size, so that's why it's up top. Then I have a fleece blanket that's doubled. I personally really prefer fleece. I have a fleece sheet, a nasty old pillow. That's the bedding. Like I said, this was good at right about freezing at night. Like the, you know, an hour or 2 freezing. The majority of the night was probably in the high 30s. With your clothes on, this was fine. If I was gonna go somewhere this time of year, it's January right now, of course. If I was gonna go somewhere this time of year where I knew I'd be sleeping in this, yeah, I'd have a heavy quilt in here also. And it just adds a lot of weight and a lot of bulk to it, but Like I said, last time I used this, it was September, so I didn't need all that. My dad was a Vietnam veteran, and he didn't ever go anywhere unprepared, and that kind of trickled down on me. So underneath my bedroll, I have a blue tarp in case it starts to rain. I forget how big this one is. It's just big enough I can pull this out, throw the blue tarp on the ground, set the bedroll on it, kind of button the bedroll back up, and then pull the remainder of the blue tarp over me, keep me out of the mud and keep the rain off me. Got an MRE. What flavor is this one? Vegetable crumbles with pasta and taco style sauce. I should probably get something with some beef in there, because beef is better than vegetable stuff. But I have an MRE because the bedroll is usually with me. I drive old trucks. It's a long way from anywhere in the desert. It might be kind of nice to have dinner one night if I broke down or whatever the case may be. And last but not least, I have some Strike Anywhere matches and some little fire brick deals. Just in case things are a little damp, you can usually get a fire started with these. I did carry a lighter in this little pack for a long time. Plastic lighters break, and then your bedroll smells like lighter fluid, and that's not a pleasant scenario. So, Strike Anywhere matches it is. Anyways, bedroll goes back together pretty easy. Put your nasty pillow and your blankets back. It buttons up just the opposite of how it went, or how it came apart rather. Make sure to give it a shake. Some guys like that to come up a little bit further above the face. I don't. I like having a little bit more to stand on. But folds like this, lays out flat. I'm not going to go through showing you guys how to snap it all up. Or actually, sure, I will. I'll set you guys on a fence post right here. And you can watch me do it, maybe. Ooh, I have to turn this around here. How is that? Okay. Okay, so that's how it goes back together. Straighten these flaps out. You roll it up, and big leather straps with buckles go around it to hold it in place. So that's my bedroll. Go back to my cheat sheet here real quick. I think that's all the questions you guys asked. Yes. That. Yeah. Okay, guys, that's all the questions that I've seen in my comments. Anyways, I appreciate your questions. It was nice to share the information like it always is with you. Don't be scared in this video or any of the upcoming videos. As always, please, if you have questions, leave them. I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for the interest, and thanks for subscribing and liking the videos. The channel's growing really well. Very happy with that. Castrating Trapper John, that video is doing really well. YouTube demonetized it because it shows genitalia on a horse, which apparently YouTube got offended about or whatever. That's okay, it's their rules. It's still helping the channel grow. Hopefully this video will take off and be able to share some knowledge and make somebody's life a little bit easier. You know, might be a little bit warmer at night, or might realize, hey, my cattle are getting shocked by that squeeze chute with power running through the hydraulic line from the motor. That was a weird one. But anyways, we'll catch you guys on Friday for the second day of weaning here at the home place. That'll be another sorting video. I'm pretty sure I rode Henry that day, but I don't remember for certain. I have not edited that footage yet. So we'll catch you guys there. Adios.